Goodfellas should suck. It's considered one of the greatest gangster films of all time, being incredibly influential in film and TV, but it should be a bad film. I love the film, but if you look at the movie logically, it's a disaster. It's everything a film professor would tell you not to do. The main issues being the narration, the story, and the main character. Now let's start with the most obvious one, the narration. Now, as most people in the film world know, narration in film is considered lazy and mostly unnecessary.
God help you if you use voiceover in your work, my friends. God help you. It's flaccid, sloppy writing.
It breaks the old adage, which is show and don't tell, and narration does nothing but tell. And while it's always been a thing in film, it's usually used sparingly. It fills you in on details you otherwise wouldn't know, and doesn't overstep its boundaries. But Goodfellas breaks this rule. It uses narration often. So often they had to pause the footage at times to fit in the narration.
Keep coming. See, Jimmy was one of the most feared guys in the city.
And sometimes they even reused footage, like here where they had to show the first scene again because there was more narration than suitable footage.
Gangster. Or you'd be the one who got whacked.
Sometimes he will also say some stuff that's unnecessary, like this line,
It was tribute, just like in the old country, except they were doing it here in America.
This sentence is redundant, like in the old country, already communicates that they're doing it in America, because of the word like. Another example of excessive narration is this out-of-place clarification that they weren't just wise guys, they were good fellas.
He's a good fella, he's one of us. You understand? We were good fellas, wise guys. You understand?
It just felt like it was thrown in to explain the title. Because while the book was called Wise Guy, there's already a film and TV show with a similar name. The narration doesn't feel like narration. It feels like someone is answering questions and what they're saying is being written down word for word. And as a result feels realistic, but not in a way that's considered good for film, at least traditionally. Not only is the narration a bit much, there isn't really much of a story either. It's mainly just a series of events in Henry Hill's life. It's supposed to be a biography, but it often ignores the more interesting parts of Hill's life. Like in real life, there's more to the Air France robbery than just walking in and out. They had to steal a guard's keys, copy them, and then replace them without him knowing. But the movie cuts that part out, which doesn't make sense. If anything, they should dramatize the heist even further. But no, he just walks in and out. The film ignores a lot of Henry's money-making schemes. Like it omits the college basketball point-shaving scheme he was trying to do. The movie oftentimes seems to be more interested in what other people, rather than him, are doing. Like it covers the Lufthansa heist, the biggest heist in American history at that time, but it doesn't show it, which in and of itself could be a movie. I think it is. But we don't even get a scene, just a before and after. Hill was barely involved in it in real life or the movie. He merely tells Jimmy about it, then steps away. The movie is a lot of summaries, and none of them are too connected. It doesn't have a plot, it just jumps around to anecdotes that can sometimes be random. Like this scene where they're introducing these guys and most of them don't come back in a meaningful way. Usually in film, if you introduce people like this, that usually means they'll be fairly important. But we only saw Johnny 2 times, 1 time.
Get the papers.
The film goes on this whole unnecessary side story to explain what being a partner with Polly means. They literally go from Frenchie pitching the heist, to Tommy being funny, to a guy becoming partners with Polly, to Henry explaining what that means, to Henry burning up the restaurant, to him meeting Karen, standing her up, to taking her out in a somewhat overrated long take, to finally showing the actual heist. The film just jumped around to several different stories that weren't really related. It was going one way and just kept getting distracted by all these other things. It's like the film had ADHD. Hill is often a passive character who experiences rather than does things. He's always just kind of there. The film also tries to show Henry in a sympathetic light, but he isn't that sympathetic. He's a drug-addicted gangster who cheats on his wife, beats people up, and even laughs at some horrific stuff.
Commercial, commercial. You don't got my money. You don't got my...
And he didn't rat out his friends because he grew a conscience. No, he did to save his neck. Because he was caught dealing drugs. And he doesn't even regret the life. He goes on about how much he misses it.
The hardest thing for me was leaving the life. I still love the life.
A minor criticism is the casting. Joe Pesci is way too old for the role of Tommy, who in real life was around the age of Henry and was tall and muscular. But Pesci is short and was in his late 40s. I mean, he's supposed to be 20 here. Same for De Niro in his first scene where he's supposed to be 28. I mean, it just looks like they painted his hair. If you apply this film to the basic rules of filmmaking, it's a bad film. A lot is quickly summarized, the main character is often a third wheel. The film over-relies on narration. The movie excludes a lot of exciting parts in Henry's life. It covers too wide of a period when it would have made more sense to focus on one specific period. And the casting decisions are unorthodox. But none of these complaints really matter with Goodfellas, because despite everything I've said, it doesn't matter. The film is great. The film shows Scorsese's talent. He's able to make a script that, while I think worked as a non-fiction book, would be more difficult for a movie, yet he turns it into a timeless classic that people still quote today. Like people still tell each other to go get their shine box. What Scorsese does is essentially make a nostalgia piece. Scorsese was around the age of Henry Hill and grew up in a similar neighborhood. He had similar experiences, he was familiar with mobsters, so he had a dozen memories to draw influence from. He knew how to capture the time and place because he somewhat lived through it. Which is why the music fits so well, because it's what Scorsese associates with similar memories. It seamlessly jumps around from place to place, giving you a sense of this world and intrigue. It takes you from the 50s all the way to the early 80s. We see a place and lifestyle that doesn't really exist anymore. It's like with the Grand Budapest, where Zero is reminiscing about a period that's long gone. It's an encyclopedia about a specific group of criminals during its heyday, with its highs and lows. And while there were a lot of scenes that show you how tough this lifestyle was, and how evil they were, it's still nostalgic in a way. And the unpleasantness makes it a more interesting story, which adds to the nostalgia. Like the piano half of Layla playing as we see the carnage of Lufthansa, or the guys having a dinner and joking around while there's a body in the trunk, or Frankie Carbone just bumbling after a hit.
Where you going? Where you going, you dizzy mother? Hey, you!
I thought you said to chop him up.
Oh, but Charlie's not here. Where the fuck are
Charlie.
you gonna chop him in?
They do other things to capture that nostalgia, like the older cheesy commercials and photos. Despite my nitpicking with the cast, everyone did a great job. I can't see anyone else as Tommy. Joe Pesci nailed it. The style of narration is technically unnecessary, but it's not annoying, and the bad grammar gives character to the narration, like it's a real mobster telling you about this. The other problems you don't really notice that much because you are just immersed in the world, and you don't really care about things like the lack of plot. What of course is one of the more important saving graces is the editing, which can also be attributed to the frequent zooms, pans, and smart coverage by Scorsese, and cinematographer Michael Ballhaus, but is also exemplified by Thelma Schoonmaker, who edited this film in such a way that you are tricked into thinking you are watching a film with a strong narrative. There isn't any time really wasted, everything's about as long as it needs to be before it moves on. Ultimately, yeah, big shocker, Goodfellas is good. But what the point I'm really trying to make here is that most rules in film don't really matter that much. Sure, they're a good guideline and one should know them, but if you do a few things really well, you can often easily make up for everything else and more. I mean, some good editing, direction, and performances can often make up for a bad script. Hell, you don't even need good performances. If you look at director Robert Bresson, his films typically have no music, no fancy camera work, or even performances, because he is literally against using actors. He just uses models who are supposed to act in the most monotone way possible, but it works. He is considered one of France's finest directors, and even French New Wave directors who hated old-school French filmmaking adored him. A film can just do a few things well and still be a masterpiece, which I think Goodfellas is. It's a movie that pretty much reinvented the mob genre, and created a spur of films and shows that they themselves are timeless. It's a good film and time capsule to a bygone era that will primarily be remembered through this film.